morning, I'm Sue and I'm your garden guru from GardenShop, and today we're talking about orchids, and I'm going to show you how to repot your orchids. Now the orchid that we've got here, this is a Phalaenopsis orchid or a moth orchid, and we're going to repot this orchid in moss only. If you've got a Cymbidium orchid, then you could use some orchid mixture, which is bark. What I usually do is I actually add a little bit of moss with the bark as well, just for water retention. So let's go. Now, first of all, I've got my pot here, and I'm going to fill it with a little bit of stones for drainage. There we go. That's in there. And then I've soaked some moss overnight in water so that it can soak up a little bit of moisture, and we're going to use only moss to replant our Phalaenopsis orchid. Now the moss you can find in little bags like this, and as I say, I've soaked it overnight in some water. So first of all, we're going to put a little bit of moss here at the bottom of our pot. And you must remember, orchids are epiphytes, so they don't actually need a lot of moisture. They actually grow more or less in the air, and we actually only want to anchor the orchid. Now I'm removing our orchid from its original pot here, and I'm placing it nicely in the center, and then I'm just going to stick some moss in around it to secure the plant in its new container. Now the reason for the moss or the bark is literally just to secure the plant. It has no function whatsoever in terms of feeding or anything like that. Now I've filled up our pot with moss, and I'm just pressing it down so that our plant is nice and secure. Put a little bit in here still, and as I said, the moss is really only to secure the plant. And remember that the moss actually retains quite a bit of moisture, so your watering for this plant is going to be very little. But now, because I've just repotted this one, I'm going to put it in here, and I'm going to drench it with water so that the water runs through, and then I'm going to take it out of the bucket with the water. There we go. And I'm sure you'll be able to see the water's running right through, which is exactly what we need. Now, to care for your orchid, you can feed it every 2 weeks with some Pocon orchid food available here at GardenShop. And also remember, do not water your orchids too much. They would rather die from overwatering than underwatering. They really only need to be secured in the soil. If you want to, you can also spray them with a spray can if your pot doesn't have any drainage holes. And then lastly, once this orchid has stopped finished flowering, you can cut the stem back between the second and the third, or the third and the fourth node, right in the middle. And if it's cool enough, the plant might shoot another spike. It would be between 10 and 15 degrees Celsius. If not, and the spike dies away altogether, you can just cut it right back, and it should then shoot a new flower spike from the bottom. While this orchid is draining here in the bucket, I'm quickly going to show you. You can see at GardenShop we've got a wide variety of orchids, some big. We've also got our little miniature Phalaenopsis, which is very quaint, and you can put that on your desk in your office, or if your office is at home now, you can put it there on your desk as well. Remember, as I've said, orchids are epiphytes, so they actually live from the air, and they actually take most of their nutrients from the air. So very, very important is not to overwater your orchids, not to let them sit in water, and always make sure that they drained well. What I do is I usually just give each orchid a cup of water every week, and I then let the water drain through. Don't let it sit in a drip tray where there's moisture underneath. Not only will the plant rot, but it can also cause bacterial disease in the bottom, in the water. So I'm sure this orchid that we've got here is now well drained. And you can see it's quite happy in its new pot. And then in 2 weeks' time, I'll just give it some poke on food again and repeat that every 2 weeks. Thank you very much for listening to our meeting today. My name is Sue and I'm your garden guru from GardenShop, and you can follow us on our website. It is gardenshop.co.za, and you'll be able to find all our other presentations there too. Thank you very much.